Return to Peyton Place. Look into the face of a town. See its streets of shame.
Whether you went with your first girlfriend or with your mom and dad in your pajamas, there was nothing quite like the glow on that giant screen. Many drive-in theaters like this one are still open, others have closed, but they all bring back flickers of a great American pastime. Now those same memories, the sounds and the images, are all part of a dazzling San Antonio, Texas collection.
May I offer a vociferous recommendation for the cuisine and delicacies tendered patrons of the snack bar.
Randall Rudd's collection is mostly in his mind. He collects the sights, sounds, smells, and especially the memories of a piece of all of our pasts. Randall, my best early memory of the drive-in is trying to squeeze as many of my buddies as I could into the trunk of my car to beat the admission price, and you said that was pretty commonplace.
It was a rite of passage. I think we all had to do it at the time, and it was a matter of pride to see how many people you could get in. In fact, I've spoken to a number of theater owners, maybe 160, 180 of them, and all of them have stories of sneak-ins. There was one guy who actually spanned the motor, who hid under the front. Oh, no. He's the only guy I heard of that. Of course, he got a little tummy burn from the carburetor or so on. But the world record, at least that I know, was in La Mesa, Texas, at the Skyview Drive-In Theater. 9 people were found in the trunk, and of course the owner saw the back end scraping the ground, and that's why he walked after him and caught him in the first place.
Randall finds that almost everyone has a drive-in memory. Some remember them as passion pits. Some remember them as family entertainment. Randall, you're a very unusual collector in that there really isn't a lot left of the category that you like to collect most.
No, drive-ins didn't leave much behind. There are speakers, certainly, and there's some paper, that the ads that took place, and some of the posters that were put out.
But a lot of the sounds of the drive-in survived.
Absolutely. When you drove in, they would talk to you about how wonderful the popcorn was, and certainly after the first feature, before the second one, the intermission was always a big part of the drive-in experience.
It's intermission time. Time to pause and refresh at the snack bar.
Randall's interest in the drive-in started very young. In the days when outdoor theaters also featured live entertainment, he was hired to dress as a monster.
Probably one of the worst pictures ever made, called Those Incredibly Mixed Up Teens Who Stopped Living and Became Zombies, or Teenage Psycho Meets Bloody Mary, depending on what drive-in you were at. But I was one of the guys that came, actually in this case, bursting out of the base of the screen, running out toward the car.
You have a marvelous collection of theater speakers, and you've told me that not all speakers are created equal. Certainly some were better than others.
Oh yes, in fact it sort of depended on how much that theater owner wanted to put into his theater. The curious thing about them is they're virtually worthless, and I think they're wonderful pieces of America's past, but they're certainly forgotten pieces of America's past.
The decaying remains of what is known as a dead drive-in are an all-too-familiar scene for Randall.
It's always sad. Theaters, unlike other buildings, were responsible for bringing a lot of joy and pain and sorrow to individuals. I'm sad about this theater, I'm sad about all of the drive-in theaters closing, but moreover, I'm sad about what it's done to our social culture in America. The drive-ins were a big part of our culture for maybe 65 years, going on right now. And a lot of that interactivity is gone. It's not the same when you rent that video and put it on your 18-inch screen at home. Not the same at all.
But this collection is not about mourning the death of the drive-in. Randall prefers to celebrate its life and times.
It's not time to sound the death knell for drive-ins. There's still quite a few around, 830 at last count, and they're beginning to grow. I think a lot of those baby boomers that went as children and wore those little pajamas with the feet in them are beginning to take their children, and their children are getting an interest. I know I take my children, and they love going to the drive-in theater.
The outdoor theaters still flicker for Randall Rudd. That's the nice thing about memories. The features never stop, and the popcorn is always fresh.